and welcome to the Rescue Dog Pod. I'm your host, Helen Summerfield-Brown, and I'm so glad you are here. Whether you are a long-time supporter of rescue work or you're just tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for listening. We are building a community of dog lovers, advocates, and change makers, and we are thrilled to have you with us. And today is an extra special episode because we are joined by our very first guest on the show, our Director of Operations for Stray Dog Support, the incredible Sabrina Fatrdla. Sabrina, welcome to the
Hi.
podcast. How are you doing today, and how are things over in wonderful Ontario, Canada?
I am doing great. I am excited for us to do our first podcast together. I think it's a long time in the making.
Uh,
And everything is great here. We have beautiful weather. I cannot complain being in Ontario at all.
I know we've been talking about doing this for a long time, as you said, and it's like really, it's so good to have you on. You know, you've been such a driving force behind the scenes of the work that we do, and I'm really, really excited to share your story and insights with our listeners. You are amazing, and you know how much I love you. So anyway, so let's dive right in. For those
Mhm.
of you that might not know, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your role at Stray Dog Support and what you actually do in your day to day? So sorry to put you on the spot. And by the way, none of these questions are prepared. These are all just like, you know, you're in the hot seat today. So whatever. And it was so funny before that. She goes, if we make a mistake, let's pause for 5 seconds so we can edit it out. I'm like, nah, no, we're just going raw. If we make a mistake, if we swear, I'm sorry. That's just who we are. But whatever. So just anyway, I digress. Let's go back to the question.
Yeah,
So
there is no editing with you and I.
no,
Uh,
this is how we are in real life. There is no filter. There is no editing. It's just whatever we talk all the time, and it's good to just have like crucial conversations and things like that. So go ahead,
mm,
and I digress. But here you go. Go back. Do you want me to
okay.
repeat the question because they probably
No, I'm
forgotten?
good.
Okay, okay, go.
So, as Helen said, I am the Director of Operations for Stray Dog Support. I have officially been a part of the team for a year and a half now, but Helen and I have worked together for many years. I helped run a rescue here in Ontario for 7 years, Urban Tales Animal Rescue. They're amazing and do incredible work locally here in Ontario and within Canada. And we started out as partnering rescues. So we supported in the successful adoption of many dogs that Helen and Stray Dog Support originally rescued, on the ground, on the streets from various locations from India, Egypt, Mexico. So we really started that partnership and got to know each other on a rescue basis. And over the years, I just really fell in love with Helen's call to action and just really had a deepening to wanting to work in international rescue. The more you work in it, you understand the nuances and the struggles that animals and people and communities face internationally, where it's not the same, here in Canada. They all have, it's a very different landscape. And as I started to learn that from you, it really just strengthened my understanding within myself that I really am, wanted to lead change on an international
Mm-hmm.
standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
especially in countries where, there isn't government support, there isn't a lot of nonprofit, there is no nonprofit sector, and there's a huge gap and disparity for the people that are working on the ground with the dogs. So going into my role, that really is my focus. Day to day is very different. I always say I never have the same 2 days at Stray Dog Support. Every day is different. Helen and I really have a core focus in my role for supporting our partner organizations on the ground. So that comes with an array of tasks, but shelter development, our animal care, building our
Mm-hmm.
partnerships on the ground, whether it be strengthening alliances with new veterinary clinics, outsourcing food, construction. Right now, we're working on 2 water projects simultaneously in Egypt. So every day is different, and I work with different people every day. But, I also help as an ear and a support system for Helen,
Mm-hmm.
and all the
That
work
you
that she
do.
has to do on her end. And we very much are a team collaborative effort here on, how are we able to provide the best quality of care to our dogs and to our rescuers on the ground. Sometimes I'm helping with marketing and
I was
social
going to
media.
say, don't forget all the marketing stuff that you do. I'm like, hey, Sabrina, can you just whip me up like a banner or something? Because I need to do this. I got a show coming up, or can you do this corporate pitch deck? And both of us, do different jobs as well as doing this rescue. So I feel so bad sometimes. I'm like, can you do this, and this, and this? And it's like, Helen, I have like, my own job
Zero
to do.
experience.
Is there well, and the time of day. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of
Mm.
work that we do, and it does take time. And I really, really appreciate all the efforts you do, and supporting me with all of the stuff that you have to get done, because I'm trying to focus on the fundraising and the admin side, all the boring stuff like the taxes and the bill payments and things like that.
Mm.
And it's great to have a partner that can go out there and I just like, here's a project, run with it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about you. I don't need to give you much guidance. I'm like, okay, we need to build some water projects in Egypt, and then off you go. And so I'm truly grateful for that. But one of the things that you did say, which was about the challenges of international rescue, because it is, I don't think a lot of people really realize how difficult it is to do international rescue. It's very difficult to do local rescue, of course, and I shout out to all the local rescuers that work within their own countries. But maybe since in the time that you've been doing the international rescue, I know you did some before in your prior organization as well, but solely now doing international. What are some of the challenges that you've found working in doing this type of rescue work?
So I think the biggest one is the cultural nuances that come up depending on the region of where you're working.
Mm,
And also for me, it's very important that I am not a voice for, but a voice with those that are working on the ground. So really taking the time to understand the complexities of each region where we are supporting these animals and what comes up, in regards to law, what is legal,
yeah.
what is not. Religious complexities are a huge one for us to navigate, and one that, I really try to remove any type of.
Preconceived ideas, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and what I believe should be the standard based on, growing up, and living in Canada and working for over 10 years in animal welfare in Canada, right?
Right.
So for me, those are always the baselines of really going in, as a listener, as a viewer, and getting a very good handle of the region we're working in, because I really feel that the more that we understand that, it will translate into higher quality of care for the animals. And, we could talk for hours about the differences between, India and Egypt or the
Hmm.
Philippines or even Mexico, right? Because laws are different everywhere. The standard of veterinary care is different in every location. But that for me is always the toughest, is when we're first going in somewhere and saying, okay, how can I approach this through a lens of non-judgment, of compassion, and remove any, like you said, preconceived notions I may have, and start from scratch with the people that are on the ground to get a full comprehensive understanding of what are our limitations, and then moving with that.
Yeah, and you do really well at that. And I think the other big challenge too is obviously language barriers. A lot of these people, when we're communicating with them through our phones, it's like they have to translate it to English to their language. A lot of it gets lost in translation, so to speak. And sometimes you get responses like, "What the hell are they saying?" But so you
Yeah,
have to,
yeah.
you have to appreciate the language barriers. Also for me too, it's like the time differences is always a
Oh, yeah.
challenge, because when we're going to bed, they're getting up and so forth. So but yeah, it's you do really really well, and I think Stray Dog as a whole does really really well on working with the team, working with the rescuers and things on the ground, and really trying to really really respect the cultural differences of each country. And like you said, it's we as rescuers here in the Western world, I should say, we think that things should be done a certain way, and maybe that is just not an option in these countries.
Mhm.
They don't have the ability to get different resources that we have, so we have to work within the parameters that we have. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying in that. And I know that recently you took a trip to Egypt, which was fantastic, and you got to meet
I
with some of the
did.
amazing rescuers and shelters that we partner with, and of course you got to spend some time with some of our dogs themselves. And how was that
Mhm.
experience for you? I know this is the second time you've been there. The first time was a bit rushed, but maybe tell us about the second time you went to Egypt and what that experience was like for you.
Oh, yeah. So with Egypt, quickly, like you said, very different than the first time. I think the biggest thing for me the second time coming in was, again, the first, it was rushed, but it was very much a learning experience for me. I had only had communication via phone calls, texting, and, video calls with our partners. And, we receive videos, the updates, the photos, but it's very different when you're on the ground and you really are able to step into the shelters and into the environments to see, okay, what are we working with here?
Mm.
And since the first visit, a big focus for me really was relationship building with our partners. That was where I decided, post the first trip of I need to really work on this and I need to establish a mutual respect and care for each other. As much as, I need them to respect me coming in. They dealt with you for years. They're like, who is this new woman coming in with all
Right.
these rules?
The
And she's
velvet hammer. Here comes
yeah, and they
Sabrina.
were like, I don't think I was by everybody too. Everyone was too excited about me at first, but I think as I built
Oh, they
that
love
level
you.
of earning their respect as well, of understanding, listening really and hearing what are they facing, what are their struggles. Over that course of the year, it really strengthened our relationships. So
Mm.
when I was able to go this second time, it just felt like a welcoming home. I felt so appreciated and valued and really cared for. I could feel deep in my heart that, our partners were really happy to have me there. They were so excited to show in person some of, the wins that they've had over the
Mm.
past year. And we softened into each other of being able to share the not so good parts, the struggles that they've come up. We
Yeah.
had dogs pass away right before I had gotten there. And, we had issues with funding and, medical and food resources. And it was just openly shared. We had a trust and a level of respect with each other where we could have truly honest conversations and work together. So for me, that was definitely the biggest, my most proud moment about this trip. And I do think that that translated for us to be able to very quickly work together to improve changes that I
Yep.
saw on the ground that needed to happen. Like we were able to instantly get on top of things and, be calling construction companies and, getting permits to get things changed because we were truly working together as partners for the first time. And that was extremely rewarding for me because I've seen the results so much quicker this way.
Right. Yeah. And you were there with another group. Maybe talk to everybody a bit about the groups that you went there with and what the purpose of that was as well.
Yeah, so I'm so excited and honored. We have partnered with SPCAI and Worldwide Vets to bring in a higher standard of care, not only for our dogs, but for shelter dogs within the Cairo region, and to start implementing TNR programs for community and street animals. So Gemma, the founder of Worldwide Vets, came down with one of her team members, Bailey, and we got to really tour. We went to 7 different shelter locations and were really able to get a comprehensive understanding of the landscape between shelters, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of times people think a shelter is a shelter. It's the same issues, same problems. But when you're dealing with some shelters that, have 100 dogs, others have 600. Some have 5 employees, some have 20. It really changes the dynamic of, and also the way that the dogs live. So we spent a week touring all of the shelters and also just Cairo streets, different regions in the downtown core and more rural areas to get a good understanding of, what is the street population
Right.
situation really in Cairo for medical care. And a big struggle for us is, having a secure pipeline for high quality medical care. Very often we are at the disposal of whatever vet will take in an animal. If there's outstanding deaths, from other organizations or from our partners, if, one clinic is able to do a handful of treatments, but then a dog needs to go somewhere else to a completely different region for something else, it can be very tricky to navigate. And
Yeah.
there's the cultural barrier as well. There's the language barrier with the veterinary clinics. And it's been a struggle for us to really get a streamlined system. So it's like, every dog at the shelter, whether it's ours or it's our partnering, are receiving the standard of care that we believe an animal deserves. And trying to figure out the cost of that for
Yeah,
ourselves as well has
yeah,
been a
it's never
challenge.
standardized, and that is probably one of the other challenges. Always like different standards of care, different costs, and so forth. So this just gives us like a really good baseline and a good workable solution. And yeah, we are super excited about this project, and we're going to talk about that more coming up once we sort of get all the nuts and bolts worked out on that. And I know that you had a great time going around all the different shelters and not only meeting with the rescue partners, but seeing all the dogs. Maybe, I mean,
Oh,
how was it
yeah.
seeing all those dogs as well that we have in our, not only in our care, but are, in shelters and so forth? I mean, I know you connected with quite a few of them. And yeah, maybe tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, oh, that is such a
Yeah.
such a
Don't
big
cry. There's no
question.
tears. If you cry, you can
No,
cry.
it's a profound privilege and also something that weighs on my heart. Going back, I was really, really excited to see all the dogs, but like you said, during the course of the visit, there are some that really stick out, some that came from horrendous conditions, and I was able to, see them in the process of healing or see them when they first came in and were being treated. So the idea and the possibility of being able to go back and see them once they've healed and recovered, or once they were in a better state, it's just such an honor. It's wonderful to connect with them and really see their personalities as well. Because a lot of the times, when you're dealing with 500 plus dogs, which we have
Mm,
in care, it can kind of become like a number system.
yeah.
These dogs are not directly in our care. We don't have the hands-on connection with them. We don't get to see their personalities day to day. So then that is a huge component to advocating for them as well, determining who's ready for adoption, what type of home would be suited for them. And my past experience, as a director of care and, running a adoptions program, for me, it's really important to be able to be with the dogs. And, within a 2-week period going in, day out, you start to pick up these little personality traits. You start to see how they are in a pack dynamic, the
Hmm.
hierarchy, the fears and limitations that come up for certain dogs with being handled by either men or women. And I get to really be in a place where I'm present and embodying, a director of care standpoint as well, not just
Right.
director of operations, to say, this is my dog and, what is the best suited for them? Is where they're living right now conducive to their healing? Do they need a smaller pack environment? Do they need to be removed and be with, a different group of dogs? Am I catching something medically here that I'm seeing that just isn't sitting right with me and I want to get them sent to a vet? And then yeah, like seeing their personalities is just incredible. Our dogs are so, so sweet.
Aren't
And
they adorable? I know, it's just seeing,
oh,
like, I was so jealous because you were sending me videos and photos and things like that. I'm like, oh my God, I just so want to be there with you. And I was so glad that you were there getting time to be with the animals that we care for, because it is very important that we do get, good understanding of their health and their personality, which to allow us to be able to place them into homes in, better homes that suit them better. And
mhm.
it was just great seeing you, with all the dogs and all the carers of the dogs. It was great that you interacted with the shelter workers, so you can actually see how they interact with the workers. And I know that, every time you sent me a video and photo, you were always smiling, and that made my heart happy. And the dogs looked
Oh,
amazing. The dogs looked amazing, and it was just so great to see them. So I'm so glad that you got to do that, and I know that That was, and you've taken all the notes for me, which was great because we have a database that which you have to get up to
Cataloging
up to
over
date. I
160
know,
dogs.
I know, right? It's like chop chop, hurry hurry, let's get back onto the database stuff. But that's okay.
Mhm.
But also while you were there too, I know you were starting up some projects.
Mhm.
Maybe just briefly, I know because we have to announce some more, but maybe briefly talk about some of the projects that we've started in over there. You've had some great support from a local organization in Canada for one project, and
Mhm.
SPCA International is helping us with another one. So maybe just quickly talk about those big projects that we've got going on in Egypt currently.
Yeah. So, like I had touched on before, when I said building those relationships allowed us to streamline and get things done much quicker. When we were there at Hope, one of our partnering rescues, we have dogs throughout three different locations, over 600 animals in care. And something that Ahmed was really struggling with was the quality of water.
Yeah.
And us also understanding, like, how does that affect the health of the dogs, right? Like, what is the cost for us to implement where they're not drinking Nile water full of bacteria? And we within like a matter of 2 days, we're like, okay, we need to change this. I was getting on the phone with you being like, Helen, we do this? Can we make it work? And sourcing, water filtration systems and a company to come in and install, and looking for water pumps. And, with the support of, one of our corporate donors, we were able to together come up with the funding to get that done for two of the locations. So, my goal is that the dogs have better quality drinking water. This is something that we can now control,
Yep.
and it then long term will result in higher quality of health for the dogs. But it was a whirlwind. We got it done super quick. It was amazing. And now, the second one is being installed. So we'll probably be sharing that after this airs. So that was a big one. We were also able to, with the help of SPCA International, build out 7 large enclosures at Hope as well, where dogs that were currently we're living in stall confinement, and we're really at the mercy of staff being able to let them in and out for their let outs, depending on the cleaning, depending on, what other situations are going on with 600 dogs, what the staff were able to achieve. Now, we've partnered and removed just under 100 dogs to open enclosure spaces where they have freedom of indoor and outdoor within smaller packs. We've worked that out to be some packs are, looking at about 16 to 18 dogs. Some are at the 25 mark, some are at the 30, and slowly have been introducing them into this pack mentality where they can go under shade when they want.
That's
They
nice.
can go lie in the sun when they want. They have an open area to play whenever they want. And that was a beautiful thing for me to be able to witness, to see dogs coming out of kennel style enclosure and being like, you could see it on them. It was like, wait, where am I?
Right. Yeah. It's so
Wait,
totally
like,
different. That's
oh,
amazing.
yeah. And of course I cry like a baby every time,
You
right?
cry
But
like a baby at everything, Sabrina. You're an emotional soul. That's what I love about you. You're sensitive.
yeah, but you could feel it from the dogs. You could see it in the way they're just soaking up the sun, and just even being able to see an animal that has gone through
Yeah.
enormous suffering come out and slowly inch up towards you to sniff you, and then choose, okay, you know what? I don't want to be here. I want to get some sun. Like, it's just such an incredible thing to witness that to some people may feel small, but for me was absolutely monumental.
Yeah, we have
So
to celebrate those small wins. That I am so grateful that you got to witness that because we've been talking about that for a long time. So it was just wonderful. And I know that there's the other project that we're doing at the other shelter cart.
yeah,
Maybe talk about that one. That one's a huge one too.
carts
That's a
are a
big
big
one.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this has been a year in the making. So Cart is the most rural location of the shelters that we support out in Egypt. It's almost 2 hours outside of city center, and they're really working with less than the basics.
Yeah.
There's a struggle of no electricity, no running water, and a big one for us was the support of getting water brought into for the dogs for the truckload. and how that worked. And over the last year, just seeing the cost of that and, my mind on an operation standpoint of like, we have to be able to do this better. And then that funding, go towards the other things like the lack of food and every month struggling to be able to feed over 300 dogs at that location. So, with the generous support of a grant, we were able to start that process of getting water brought into the middle of the desert. And it has been a very tall task. I have learned so much about water
Building.
irrigation, yeah, and filtration in the last 6 months that I'm like, okay, this will come in handy one day for the next shelter, and I'll be better and quicker with it. But essentially, yeah, we are bringing water in, no longer through truckload and no longer at the, being dependent on a outside company and what they're charging us and when they can deliver and when they can't. And, also the sun and the heat is a big component of that as well. Water just burning out and us not having enough to, fill the pools, the little dipping areas so the dogs can cool down from the heat and they can have drinking water at the same time. And that was a big one. I know that, you've gotten emotional about many times of like, okay, we have just enough for them to drink, but how are they going to stay cool?
Yeah, it was
And
seeing the photos of them, like the dogs were all like on the basically hugging the walls, trying to get any amount of shade that they could to keep cool. And
yeah,
we got some pools put in a while ago, but they were empty because the water is so expensive to ship out there. And I know that this water project will be able to fill those pools, and not only fill the pools, but we're trying to work on the sort of second phase so that we can bring in some trees, so we can
yeah.
bring in some vegetation so that they can grow some
Mhm.
vegetables and things like that, because they give their dogs, the pumpkins and the potatoes and the carrots. So being able to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining is like the goal of this
Oh,
shelter
yeah.
project. And I know that we're sort of not finished yet. We're going on to phase two of that project, and that we're still sort of finalizing the first phase. So we can't wait to sort of share more information about that. But I know that you were instrumental in that, and just being there and seeing the vision. This is what our goal of is at Stray Dog Support, is to basically try to get these shelters to be able to sustain themselves, so
Mhm.
that they can, provide the best care for their dogs, so that something sustainable. Bringing in trucks of water was not a sustainable model. So we are super excited about these projects, and we want to expand into different shelters to do different things like this, because it's critical. And thank you for all your work. And from your perspective, like as someone from the outside, how did you find the overall animal welfare situation in Egypt? You were on the ground, you were driving through the streets, you were talking to the people, you were talking to the shelter workers, the rescuers. What is your thoughts on that? While you were there.
Mm.
It's a tough
Mm.
question, I know, because it is hard, because we kind of know the answer, that it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Uh, but you saw some, there are some great people trying to do amazing things, but
Oh, yeah.
just maybe from what you saw there, it doesn't have to be like a big political statement or anything or whatever, but
Mhm.
just from what you saw while you were there.
Yeah, it's, again, it's a double-edged sword because going there firsthand and seeing just the state of, how street animals, and this is not just dogs, this is also
Mm,
equine as well. Equine is a big part of our workout in Egypt and something that we want to expand on,
mm,
as our organization grows. But um, to be frank, it's very challenging. It's very hard to see, and it's very hard to bear witness of cruelty and suffering, knowing that you cannot do something to help all of them. But
yeah.
what really brings me back into the work is that we do have incredible people on the ground, and this isn't just in Egypt. This is like, Stephanie in Mexico too, one of our team members. Like, you see people who, they're not rich. They're not living a life of luxury where it's easy for them to do this work and say, yes, I will donate my time and, lose income. Or I live in a mansion. So for me, it's no problem to help.
Right.
A lot of the people on the ground, really are from very humble, uh,
Grassroots.
grassroots environments. And
Hmm.
in Egypt, particularly, I'm so astonished at how people who they themselves are just working the very best they can to have a good quality of life for themselves, are also choosing like, but I have a call of service to these animals here, and I will do everything within my power to help them, and to see the resourcefulness that comes with that. That's a big one with Egypt, where you have to learn how to be resourceful. And I have learned a lot from our partners in that way when it comes to haggling and, working working to try and get things at a better cost, or building things with their bare hands. They really work tirelessly with what they have.
Right.
And the support that we give, some people may have this perception that like it covers everything. It's impossible. We, do the very best that we can, but we support, over 10 different shelter organizations around the world. And, we fight every day for the funding that we get to then give back to our partners and to these dogs, and in a way with our support and our guidance from the experience that we have of over 20 years collectively in animal welfare, right?
Right.
So, but
But you
yeah,
didn't rescue any
sorry,
dogs this
I
time.
went
Like,
on
well,
a
you
rant
did.
there.
I know. I know the last time you were there, you chased down a dog that was hit by a car. Correct?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
puppy.
yeah,
That was like
and
day one, wasn't it? The first day you were there, I think. And you
yeah, it
even
was
like you
right
had to
after
use the two.
landing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
tell
was
us
right
about that.
after landing. There was a pack of stray dogs on the street, and the car in front of us, did not honk. It did not slow down. It ran right through them, and it was like I was in a state of horror from what I had witnessed. Then also rooting back to reality of I have no idea where I am. I'm in a country I don't speak the language. What do I do here? And we were with two of the employees from our partnering rescue, and it was just immediate. We jumped right in to try and get one of the dogs that was severely injured, keeping the pack away while they were in a state of shock and fear and pain themselves, so that way we didn't get injured. And it ended up taking us almost 45 minutes of jumping over broken down, half buildings and fencing to get to some of the dogs that were hurt and bring one back
Mm.
and rush it to the vet. And this year, I got to see her in our
What's her
shelter, which
name? What's her name,
her name
Sabrina?
is Sab. She was named
Sabby.
after
Yeah.
me. I was I was very blessed to be able to be the one. She had scurried under and dragged herself. She wasn't able to use her back leg. She was bleeding all over her
Mm.
face. I didn't know how bad the wounds were because we couldn't get there fast enough. And she burrowed herself in between a brick. I guess it would be like a wall or fence, and there was a huge hole there and fell under it. And we worked together with, my hand pulling, trying to get at her and safely get her out without hurting her body, and multiple people behind me making sure that the rest of the pack was not coming too close. And it was a wild experience.
Right.
And I got to see her this time, and she's very timid. She was, I didn't force an interaction with her, but just being able to sit there and watch her. She has her own little family with her own pack of dogs, and she
She
is able to
knows.
walk now. Yeah, she walks. She doesn't have,
Oh.
you wouldn't know that was the situation that she came from, where she was just sleeping on the ground with her litter and her mum, and a car would just choose to horrifically say just choose to run over them as if they
Yeah.
didn't matter, as if her life had no meaning.
Yeah, and that's like people always say to this, oh, say to us, oh, how could they do that? But it is a reality. We get dogs that are run over on purpose. We get dogs that are, thrown in front of trains. I mean, the things that we see is horrific, but we try to do what we can. And you being there, witnessing that, and saving that dog, and now having that dog in our program was an experience, a bad experience, but a good experience in the end because you got to help save a life. So it's always when you're in rescue, you've always got to be prepared for the unprepared, for the
Yeah.
unexpected. So you were thinking you were going for a drive to a shelter, and then you get involved in that, and I that was the first thing that you messaged me and said, oh my God, we've just witnessed this, and hey, can we take this dog into our program? And I was like, absolutely, because that dog needed help, and so that was such a baptism of getting into Egypt was that
Yeah,
rescue. So that
it
was a great
was.
experience. But okay, so switching gears a little, I want to
Hmm.
talk to you about the recent rally in Toronto that you organised for the stray dogs of
Yes.
India, and it was in response to a Supreme Court ruling there. Now, before we go into that, I just want to remind people of what that was about, because that came to all as a shock to everybody. So back, and I'll try to be very brief because this is very dry stuff, but I think it's important for people to understand the context. So back in August 11th of this year, the Supreme Court directed the authorities in Delhi to remove all stray dogs from public streets and place them in shelters with a time frame of 6 to 8 weeks. And then they wanted to mandate the construction of shelters for at least 5,000 dogs. And then they wanted to put this like in special enforcement forced to be tasked with rounding up the dogs and placing them into these what we considered murder camps. And it was something that was done kind of irrational, based on a fear from the public about rabies. Now I know that it is not like rabies is an important thing to talk about, but you know, as we just sort of realize that there are no places in India currently that could house the thousands and thousands of dogs that they were talking about getting off the street, and how do they get them off the street, and who's going to take care of them, and who's going to feed them, and dogs going to fight. And this was something that we are very passionate about, because we have a lot of dogs in India. We support a lot of street feeders in India who take care of their dogs, who vaccinate their dogs. And this ruling was in opposition to the already established, what they call the ABC rules, which is the animal birth control rules, which required for the humane vaccine and sterilization of dogs and spay neuter. So there was already rules implemented within India that just weren't being followed. So obviously everybody in India were out. Well, a lot of animal advocates were outraged in India. And given the fact that we have a lot of dogs in India, we wanted to do something. So it was like, I don't know what day it was, but then I was talking to Sabrina, and she says, hey, let's do a rally or a peaceful gathering in Toronto at the India consulate to maybe show how we don't want this to happen. So what happened then, at Sabrina?
Well, I will adjust that wording there, where I believe I said, "Oh, it would be a great idea if someone."
Oh, okay. I don't remember that quite like that's how that
I
went.
our group chats went wild, and I was like, "Okay, we're doing this. Let's go." And it just kind of was a idea in our conversation that really turned into a call of action, because we saw how important it was. But yeah, I won't touch up on you. You gave a really good, comprehensive understanding of, why this is so important
Hmm.
to fight against. And I really believe and believed at the time that having voices on an international standpoint, advocating for dogs in another country is really important. Applying that pressure. Not to say we would have, hundreds of thousands of people, but I really do believe one person can make a difference. One social media share can make a difference. And I see it time and time again with our work. So it's like a fundamental belief in me that I'm like, no, if we even have one more person see this and they reshare it, like, this can make a difference.
Right.
But so we quickly, organized a team on the ground. We partner with, some other organizations that we partner with
Yeah.
and have worked with in the past.
Yeah, we had SPCA International, which we love and adore. We also had Positive Sanctuary, which is another Canadian-based organisation that have a shelter. They run a shelter in Amritsar, India, and we also had Dhruv, who is one of our volunteers, who's based in Delhi, who runs his own little organisation as well. So it was a group of people, and so that was great to have like a lot of different people from different organisations really wanting to get involved in that. So, and then now
Yeah.
continue.
And our group chat was very much like Drew keeping us up to date on everything in India, sending us every news article that was coming up, so we were up to date. Going to every single protest and rally out there and sending us the footage. Versus on our end, I sprung and all of a sudden was like, okay, I'm going to design some content for us and put together something and, reach out to the police department of Toronto to make sure that, we were in compliance with everything that we needed in order to have a peaceful gathering. And I chose to start it at the consulate. Obviously, because that is where we wanted our voice to be heard first.
Mm-hmm.
And, we did a bunch of signs and, printed out like over 500 flyers for people to, sign the petition and, really just show, hey, people in Canada are watching, they're not happy, and we know that this is not okay. And we had an incredible turnout.
Yeah, it was a great
I
turnout.
was really nervous. We had a couple conversations with Helen. I was like, but Helen, what if only 5 people come? And she just kept saying, it doesn't matter, 5 more people to support us. And you really pushed me when I was having those personal insecurities of, will all my efforts, translate into people caring and will
Yeah,
they want to come and stand with us? And they
yeah, it was
did.
good. There was a good group of people, and it was also a little stressful too because at the same time, me being in the United States, of course, Air Canada went on strike,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I was really struggling to get up there. I mean, I had to pay a lot of money to get the tickets up there, but it was like, oh my God, it's like, why now, Air Canada? But so I did get up there, which was really great because I really, really wanted to be there. I would have been so sad missing out on it. And it was just great to see like a lot of different people, not only people who are from India that live in Canada now, but a lot of people who, from Canada. They were just here to support. They were all animal lovers, dog lovers. Some of the people had been following our work, following other different organizations. And we gathered around. We had Hilary Farr from HGTV and her dog Suki come to support us and talk to us. And then it was great because then we all marched down in a huge, big, long line, yelling at our top of our voices down to the park where we continued the rally. And it was rush hour because this was a Thursday afternoon, right? So this wasn't like it was a weekend. So I think we did pretty good for a Thursday. And it was just great. We had so many people so passionate, and I got to meet people that had like driven down from Ottawa, which is
Oh,
like
yeah.
what 6 hours away, I think it is, that was staying the night
And
because they yeah.
they drove over 8 hours with traffic and they paid for a hotel and they brought their dog and it was just so beautiful.
Yeah, it was wonderful and it was great. It was just a great, and I think that it's an important lesson for people is just to basically, if you have a passion, you have a mission, be their voice. It doesn't matter. And this rally was really important to us. Did we make a difference? We like to think so because I know that on August 22nd, the Supreme Court met again, and they sort of like revised the initial ruling that was done on August 11, and they sort of made it so that that people had to be. I'll get this right, but like sterilization, vaccination, and deworming are to continue, but the dogs have to now go back to their original territories, whereas before they were going to be contained in these murder camps.
Mhm.
There was going to, but there are things in the ruling like setting up public feeding of stray dogs in a designated feeding zones. Whilst it's a good idea, I'll see how that actually goes because it's dogs are very territorial, and how will they go feeding in one designated area yet to be determined. But there's a whole lot of different things that happened from that revised court ruling, which was seen as very positive. So we're just going to sort of see how that gets implemented now. But I'd like to think that the voices of people were heard, the voices of animal lovers were heard. Hopefully they heard us a little bit from Canada. I know that our social media posts of the rally got a ton of views, a ton
Oh,
of
yeah.
comments.
It went
And
viral.
we talked about a lot, talked about that in my last podcast, how we had some amazing, wonderful comments and that we had some very negative comments. As they wanted to put a bullet
Mhm.
in my head as one example. But I think overall it was just a really positive experience, and it was just great to be there. So I'm thankful that you organized it, and it was just really, really inspiring and uplifting. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so other than that, I just want to sort of ask you, from if somebody wants to get into international rescue, for anyone
Mhm.
that's listening, might want to get involved, what would you say, or how would you maybe get them to, besides volunteering at Stray Dog Support, what are some of the things that you could do to just for people?
Mm, I had this conversation at the rally a lot, because from that we ended up having so many people being like, I want to do more. Like this, I felt so a part of this community, and this felt
Hmm.
so enriching for my heart. Like, where can I do this more? And I always say with, start out with, we want to change everywhere, we want to help everywhere, but really hone in and feel into your heart, like where, if it's a specific place, if it's a specific community, a
Hmm.
specific type of animal, like what is your heart's calling, where do you want to give your time and love and energy to? And from there, really start just researching and understanding, and follow other organizations, see the work that they're doing, learn, and volunteer. I always to say, like, volunteering, I'm a volunteer, like you mentioned, we don't take a pay for the work that we do, and it's incredibly rewarding. You work within, the restrictions of your life, and what you are able to do, of course, but it really is a call to service of wanting to do something outside of your own life for the better of another, and
Yeah.
for the better of the world. And it's profoundly rewarding. And they're, nonprofits like ours, for example, they need help in every department, whether it's you have skills from your professional job that can help with organization, operations, marketing, social media, strategy, volunteer management, interviews, transport, donation, corporate. Like, there are so many avenues where a lot of nonprofits like ours, we're a small team. We are
Yeah.
under 5 people for over 500 animals. And, we have a new initiative every month going on. It is
Yeah, we
overwhelming
do.
at times. And a lot of the times it takes us longer because we're learning. I'm like, okay, today I am a video editor. Let me figure this out. Or today my role is a photographer, and having the support of people who have a little bit of knowledge in those areas, even just having the guidance, if you're able to offer guidance and wisdom to people that are doing this, it is such an enormous help.
Yeah.
If you can't do that financially too, we have this conversation all the time. People think that they have to donate, like, hundreds or thousands of dollars to make an impact. And we really see from our fundraising, like, even $5 a month, being
Yeah.
consistent with that, and a rescue being able to depend, an organization being able to depend on that $5 from you each month. You put that with 100, 200 people that want to give back. This is how we start seeing the funding come in to say, okay, we can take on this medical expense, or we can take on one more animal off the street that's suffering, and get it to safety and to dignity. And it just, I can't stress enough how much even the smallest donation makes such a difference, and it really does save a life. And
It does. It does.
I
It
wish
buys a
people
bowl of
knew
food.
that more.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree because I mean I have some amazing supporters. We have some amazing supporters at Stray Dog, and most of our supporters are $5, $10, $25. And if people can't donate, they share, they talk about us, they spread the word, they
That's
educate, and
another one.
that's also very important, is to just talk about it, because so many people today, just by talking to somebody, you just don't know. So spreading awareness about the work we do, you know, as I said before, we're human. We make mistakes. We're doing the best that we can. We're just volunteers. We're working in an international space where we're trying to deal with so many different countries and people and religions and politics and funding and currencies, and it's a whole
Mhm.
ball of whole lot of stuff that we just don't know about, and we're doing the best we can. But during this time too, we also have to remember that we have Sabrina and I and Stephanie, and we've got Heather and Drew. We've got some amazing people, and Paige. We have a lot of fun doing this because we are a group of people that have all the same. We're all like-minded. We don't have egos. We're here for the animals. We're not here for ourselves. It's a real team environment, and I absolutely love that. So I encourage you, if you're going to do any type of rescue, is to get with like-minded people who are in it for the animals, and that's really, 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 really important. And it's some days you want to cry and you curl up in a ball. Other days you're celebrating wins, or you're celebrating something amazing like getting a dog adopted here or getting water for a shelter. It's pretty cool stuff. And I'm just so grateful that I'm surrounded by amazing people. I tell Sabrina every single day, don't ever leave me. And I'm so grateful for her efforts, and I'm so grateful for the other efforts of all of our team members. It's absolutely wonderful. And yeah, I love you guys so much. But so
Mm.
I know, group
Can I
hug,
jump in there for a second? You
kumbaya.
I want
So
to jump in. You actually touched on something that is, yeah, I didn't, and it's so important when we talk about community. I think that, well, I know from personal experience in working in animal welfare for so long, your team and the people that you work with and advocate for, and the community that's created here is the most beautiful, beautiful thing I
aw,
have been able to be blessed with. And I always say, like, I can never imagine my life without it, not only because of I feel such a deep call of service to the animals, but it's because this really is my community. This is a place where I feel understood, heard, respected, valued, and I feel a deep connection with those around me because we are making a difference together. And I think that is a huge thing that we are lacking in the world right now. We live in a society where of individualism, and it's everybody has to, worry about themselves and figure it out. And this is true. And at the very same time, like, we need community in order to be stronger and in order to make a difference, not just for ourselves, but those around us. And having that common thread makes you feel like you are fighting for something that really matters above just yourself in your own
yeah,
life. And that is a mission and a purpose in life that I like. Yeah, I can't tell you how much that affects how I show up in my daily life and how it fuels this
passion.
this fire in me, yeah,
Yeah,
to show up better in every way I can, because I'm constantly being reminded from those that I work with and those that are with, show up at the rallies or reach out to us to help volunteer, or our partners, like, they're showing up. So then therefore I'm like, I need to, and I want to show up for you and the animals too.
wonderful. That's absolutely perfectly said. And on that note, we'll probably leave it there. But Sabrina, I really wanted to thank you so much for joining us and for all the work you do. It's amazing. And I just want to thank to everyone listening. Thank you again for tuning in to the Rescue Dog Pod. Don't forget you can listen to this episode and others on our Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean, and we'll also share it on our social media networks. We also have an Instagram page. If you can go and like and follow that as well, the Rescue Dog Pod. And we can't wait to continue sharing the work that we're doing through and different topics through our weekly podcasts. And so, on that note, until next time, take care, advocate, continue to show up, and I guess cuddle your I shouldn't say just cuddle your pup, cat, goat, horse, whatever you got. Give them a hug from us all, and we thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone. Bye, Sabrina.
Thank you. Bye, Helen. Bye, everyone.